Down.
Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Brian from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Security Squawk podcast. I am your co-host, Brian, here with Andre and Randy. How are you guys?
Pretty good. How's it going?
Doing good.
Going well.
76 and sunny over here in South Florida.
Freezing cold here.
Warm and not sunny, but it's still pretty warm in Texas. I think we're going to get to 77 today.
Nice. Well, not here.
What's it going to be where you are?
I don't even know. It's 24 right now, Fahrenheit. I don't think it's getting above like 28 today.
Nice.
It's cold. There's ice.
It's so cold.
It is. That's why I have my heated jacket on. You see they make these like little heated like jackets now. They're like heating blankets that you put on.
All right.
So here we go. We had a great idea as we were building this show, and we were like, "Hey, what are we going to do this week?" And Andre was like, "Predictions." I mean, we like to sometimes do predictions for the heading into the new year for what we think is going to happen. But we're going to hold off on that until next week. This week, we thought it'd be a good idea to take a look at what people predicted in the past and see if that kind of came true or what happened with that. And it's interesting because I think when we go through this stuff, you'll see that it presents a common theme. But we'll get into it. We'll talk about it. And we'll see if you guys kind of come up with the same common theme that we talked about when we were looking at this stuff. So pretty interesting to kind of go through this. So we'll pull it up on the screen. We'll talk about some of these predictions. And we'll kind of give you our thoughts on that. And then I think next week we'll hop in here and we'll give you guys our predictions for 2025. Wow, time is flying. So
that is.
So I got a couple articles here, guys, that we found quick when we Googled. Interesting that some of the ones we found, you can no longer access the content anymore. But this was an interesting blog post by a bunch of security people. This guy kind of goes into a little bit about growing concerns over mental health and wellness and cybersecurity professionals. I don't know if that's too much of a concern any more than it was.
Still is.
It still is, but I don't think it's increased or grown. And he goes into convergence of OT, IoT, and cyber physical attacks. That's kind of happening. This guy kind of goes into software suppliers will be the next big target of ransomware attacks. I wanted to stop there because I thought this was an interesting one. As he goes on and says, Curtis Dukes, that is, he's the Executive Vice President and General Manager in Security Best Practices. This is ransomware is a wholesale business that succeeds by offering a set of tools and exploits that can be developed once and run as many times as possible. The most lethal and best run criminal cartels are looking to downstream from their most lucrative targets for software suppliers who distribute vital product updates. These exploits will not show up in large numbers and they will not roll out quickly since they require expertise, sophistication, and long development time. But the ROI is too large to resist. So it's basically, he's saying that third-party attacks through software that is distributed, kind of like what we saw with SolarWinds. And I don't know, that was probably the year SolarWinds happened. I don't think it played out like this. That's why I wanted to talk about this one. I think what he predicted wasn't too far off, but I think what we saw was SaaS vendors and SaaS applications were the victims of these events, right?
Same idea, different vector.
different vector and different consequences, because I think he was thinking like this could be like a Trojan horse type thing. But what cyber criminals kind of figured out is like we don't really need to do that. We can just attack a major third-party SaaS application and shut all these businesses down, like we saw with CDK Global this year. And we saw that in a lot of different places. So talk about time, money, and investment and streamlining processes. Great idea he had, and I think he was kind of thinking the right way, but along the way they pivoted and they said we don't have to go through these kind of extreme. I mean, it's hard to do what he's laying out.
But it happened a ton.
Happened with SolarWinds, right? But where else has it happened?
We saw it this year with just in the past couple months with the it's like the scheduling software or whatever that Starbucks uses. We talked about that. Like that was the third
these are
party.
all right, but they're all SaaS applications. What software has had like something embedded in it where it got pushed out and then they were able to infect systems? I don't think that's something that the cyber criminals really, they didn't go down that rabbit hole too far once they figured out the SaaS stuff.
Like I said, kind of the same idea, still called supply chain, but happening more to the smaller parts of bigger systems. Because if you can bring one down, like in the case of the provider that Starbucks uses, you can bring down many companies with that. But yeah, you're right though, from that perspective of, I can't think of a ton where they were able to get into actual software that got compiled. Maybe are we trying to say here, like, did companies like close that? Because what were we saying then? You got to have code review, and every single piece of code that's changed needs to be reviewed and verified that it was intended. So like, did they fix that? Is that happening now? I'm not confident it is.
No, I just think they didn't invest the money in that rabbit hole. They were like, wait, this is a lot more easier and just as lucrative if we can just shut down these web apps from even people being able to use them.
Good point.
Andre, any thoughts? Good?
Well, the only thing, I guess, sorry, this is now, it turned into a prediction, but I will say that we're going to now see companies demand from the software suppliers, like stricter verification. They may even hire third parties to say, well, we need to double check your system in a closed environment just to be sure, because we rely so much on you.
I'll stay disciplined. I'll leave my prediction for next week around that.
All right, cool.
So Kathleen Moriarty, who's a CTO somewhere, said that I just wanted to read this one because I know you guys will get all riled up over it. Thanks to the president's executive order, and the president is Biden, issued last May, we'll see increased support for software supply chain assurance. That's what you talked about, Randy. Many vendors will provide software bill of materials for all their software and libraries. The overall management and achieving allow lists for expected software additions will take a bit longer, as will simplifying the management of software once it's in place. What do you guys think here? I don't think her prediction went too far.
I'm like, wow, if this would have happened, woohoo! But I'm like, whoa, pipe dream. It should have happened, but I don't think it is.
Correct. Yeah. Unfortunately, we're probably still a good 5 years away from anything like this, but it's a good idea. Ransomware will continue to grow in 2022. An organization's best response to a ransomware infection is a comprehensive and regularly tested recovery program. Blah, blah, blah. Start with a review and all that stuff. An increased use of log file and configuration monitoring software. Basically, people are going to get socks and seams. Not too far off. I think there was some adoption, not to the level we would probably like to see in our businesses. But ransomware is definitely continuing to grow. I don't think that was a too far of a reach there in 2022.
I think, though, he's saying the best defense is have a good way to come back. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, that got implemented. And so what did we see? We see the double extortion where, okay, yeah, you got a way back, but your data is still being held ransom out there on the dark web, about to be released to the world. So cat and mouse game, probably a good prediction for 2022. But what did we see in response to that? Data getting held hostage, like I said, out there on the dark web.
And that's a great point, Randy, because I think we're going to review a bunch of these predictions today on the show, and I don't think you're going to see double extortion one time. That's why we went back to 2022, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a couple things here in these predictions that, quite frankly, we had as a society and as humans, we had a blind spot to, because we didn't have certain technologies, or certain things didn't exist or weren't well known at this point in time that are now pretty damn well known, like double extortion with ransomware.
Right.
So it's great to have backup. It's great to have plans, but it doesn't matter anymore, right? Because if they get that data and they decide to start pushing it out on the dark web, that could be really ugly for a business today. Increased adoption of endpoint monitoring, multi-factor authentication, and zero trust network access methods. I think you got one of the three right.
We're still seeing 2FA.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I think endpoint monitoring is about the only thing that got up in 3 years.
Yeah.
To the level of where you're like, okay, that was pretty well adopted by businesses.
But this is like the easiest ones.
MFA and zero trust. I think that they're still very, very
needed,
lightly adopted in most businesses.
And this, yeah. So I agree. This is like, these are kind of low hanging fruit. And are they still adopted everywhere? No. The latest test that CISA put out to test your 365, one of the things it tests for is MFA being turned on. So everybody's not doing it. It's not getting put out across the board. But yeah, this is like me saying patching, because patching's still a thing and it still needs to happen in 2025.
Yeah, I just don't see what's so hard about pushing a software on a computer that does monitoring, turning on 2FA, and pushing out a tool.
Right, but why don't the better question is why don't businesses adopt this stuff quicker?
I think it's a good place to stop and spend 30 seconds talking about it.
We're not going back. We're going back 3 years at this point. Right.
And why are they not doing it? I mean, I would say like on the multi-factor, because it can be annoying to people that don't know what they're doing. I've gotten pushback in the last week from a client about that. They didn't say turn it off, but they did harumph and went like this and sat down in their sandbox. You know what I mean? Like, because they don't want it turned on, but like you're putting your whole business at risk if you don't have it. So
sure are. Another prediction I don't think went too well. Legislation of ransomware delivery methods models using cryptocurrency. This guy predicted that in 2022, he thought more nations would start to regulate cryptocurrency and ransomware payments, and would fine people for using cryptocurrency to pay their ransomware. Well, that never materialized anywhere.
I think where he's coming from is that we want to know who's getting paid money so we can be aware of how big the crime is, so we can see, is it something we need to do more about? When you pay with cryptocurrency, it's all under the radar. But, if all the criminals are demanding cryptocurrency, then we're stuck with that. Well, if we're going to pay, we got to pay that way, no matter what the governments say. So I don't know.
But at the end of the day, the governments, I personally believe the governments are not regulating because people are greedy, and that's all it has to do with. It has to do with greed. More people that are using the system, great. And even if it's criminals, we don't care. You got to normalize, digital currency soon. This guy had his crystal ball working, I think. Continued supply chain issues. That's couldn't be more of the truth, right? I think we saw people really wake up to the idea of third-party risk and what can happen if a particular piece of technology in their supply chain disrupts their business. He said we'll continue to see evolution of ransomware into extortion campaigns. He got that right as well, as we mentioned. Double extortion is not being used there, though, because I don't think it was really a popular term when he kind of said this, but he's alluding to that. So I think this guy had really good foresight. And machine learning and artificial intelligence will play a role, right? And look, it's taken a couple of years for this stuff to play out. And I think that that's kind of one of the themes we're going to start seeing here as we go through these, is that a lot of these things that were predicted, 3 years ago are just starting to kind of rear their ugly heads now. So, guys like us, we kind of see things because we're in it every day. We see things, 2-3 years down the road, because it takes a while for things to play out and things to kind of permeate through businesses and stuff like that. So
this one's probably the most right on. Probably he's two or 3 years ahead of his time, if not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely said more of the right stuff that's played out than anyone I've read out of all the ones we're going to read.
Mm-hmm.
Skip over that one. Threat actors are likely to increase focus on tactics and techniques designed to circumvent signature-based defenses. I think that's true, 100%. I think, they're trying to evade defenses left and right, and they do that through various ways now. I can't. Yeah, I think if anything, they've kind of they increased their focus, and not only did they increase their focus, they kind of came up with a lot of different ways to evade things, like get in the networks through social engineering, and then once you get in there, they've figured out many ways to evade the tools that we've put in place, because they know what tools a lot of cyber defenders are using, and they're building around that, and they're behaving on networks to try to go undetected.
And they're testing on it as well, right? They're buying their own version of, Arctic Wolf or whatever the case is, and seeing how it behaves and changing their code towards that too.
This guy in this last one, we're going to switch up articles here, but Steven Jensen, he kind of said social engineering, right? As an employee continues to work remotely, there will be an increase in social engineering attacks. Definitely happened, right? We saw massive attacks over the last 2-3 years that social engineering was the main reason why they got in.
I mean, this guy probably got a call from the FBI after MGM went down. They're like, how'd you know that? But yeah, that was a pretty good one.
All right, so Forbes has an article here, kind of the same stuff. Cybersecurity talent. They says the drought will get much worse. What are your thoughts on that one, guys? I don't know if the drought got worse.
Well,
it's a quandary, I guess, right? Because these companies want experienced cybersecurity people, and that's just not where the market's at right now.
There's a shortage. I think what you're going to see, this is putting pressure on an AI solution that doesn't rely on people being trained and having to go to school and all that jazz. So I know this was 2022, and he probably didn't see that coming, because I think this was ChatGPT. But that's where we're headed for this. So that's a pretty good prediction.
Good prediction that he predicted AI might come in and save the day here a little bit. But I also think, he talks about this from the perspective of the drought being much worse because cybersecurity, and we have to protect more things. But I think this also is much worse because of regulation and compliance needs as well, right? Because now you need cybersecurity and compliance experts, which, again, Unfortunately, you're not going to find like a Swiss Army knife out there all the time where a guy's going to know cybersecurity and compliance. You're probably going to have to hire a couple different people to fill these roles along the way. And I think it's more complicated now than it was 3 years ago because of that. CMMC is coming to DoD contractors, and it's complex, and people are going to have to know how to handle that.
Mm-hmm.
Supply chain cyber attacks will be commoditized. Interesting one here. I don't know if we're commoditized yet, but it does happen a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And, well, and what's unique about what he's saying is he's saying it's the maximum disruption.
Sure.
And the disruption is how they extract the money. Mm-hmm. Because if they can disrupt, so once again, tiny little part, of a bigger set of programs that a company's running on or whatever, i.e. their supply chain of, software suppliers, you bring one of them down, that tiny little thorn can disrupt everything, if not, a lot of stuff. And then that's where the money will flow, because if they can get money for that. So good. That's a really, really insightful there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. And now we're seeing exploit kits as a service, or cybercrime as a service, where for a minimum of a couple of $100, you can go ahead and just get the tool. You don't need to really know what you're doing, and you're going to get a nice commission out of it.
Right. As long as you can get access to the network, we have the tools to take that business down. Whether it be ransomware, whether it be taking down a server that runs a SaaS application, there are people on the other side waiting to sell you hacking services for the networks you have access to. So that's what they mean when they say they're going to commoditize this stuff. Death and rebirth of cyber insurance. I don't know if it ever really died, but it's definitely morphed in 2 to 3 years, right? Claims, insurance companies are smarter at denying claims now. The premiums have skyrocketed, especially in high-risk industries or industries where you might be responsible for a lot of companies' data or endpoints, like our industry. But you've seen it all over. And what are your thoughts on this, guys? Cyber insurance. I don't think it ever died, but it's definitely it's reemerged as a different product than it was.
Exactly. And I think that's where he's going. I think this was really insightful, because the way it was, they couldn't keep paying out, because they're just giving you the cyber, and whether the cyber insurance, no matter what you did, you got paid. And then the rebirth of that is forcing compliance. The great thing for like our companies is we're able to go in and help somebody get a security framework set up. And then they fill out their application for their new cybersecurity, for the cybersecurity insurance. And then boom, the price goes down, because they've got the things in place that the insurance companies are looking for. I think that's the rebirth that he's talking about.
Yeah. So we're going to skip around here because we've got about 5 minutes left. Cyber attacks will cost lives, guys. So the world's no stranger to the amount of damage. Hackers have seen attacks on hospitals, transportation systems, and even schools. I feel like we kind of crossed that threshold in the last couple of years. I feel like I do remember hearing like maybe a hospital over in Europe, I think France, where somebody had to be diverted and they didn't make it as a result. We haven't seen a massive problem around this, but even one life lost to a cyber attack is too many. But it's saying global cyber wars and casualties are just a logical hop away. We're probably still on that path, but fortunately we haven't hit like mass casualties from cyber attacks.
Yeah, there's been workarounds, but I'm just thinking that have kept, emergency rooms rolling and all that jazz, and learning how to do things on paper and all that kind of stuff. But I think back to 2022, that was a very real concern. What happens if they hit a hospital chain and then all the ambulances are piled up outside and can't bring in people or whatever. You know, we haven't seen that level, but I bet you there's been somebody that's been affected by that maybe costs their life somewhere along the way. They couldn't get something, you know, treatment or whatever.
Yep.
And also, what hospital wants to put that on their news? You know, right? So they gotta. I don't want to say cover up, but I'm sure they're having.
They're gonna bury the body. Yeah. Machine learning, AI tools continue changing game for cybersecurity. Pretty spot on there. I like the fact that they're mentioning AI here specifically because, look, ChatGPT wasn't like even close to what it was back then when this was written, right? So let's keep that in perspective, though. I like number 8 here, guys. More cyber criminals in this slammer. What do you think there? Do you think that's increased? I know we've had some stories recently in the news with the Lockbit developer getting hit in Israel the other day. They took the guy from another ransomware group in Romania. They took him down the other day. But I don't think I've seen a prolific number of cyber criminals brought to justice. You know, they get some guys here and there, but they don't really take these guys down too hard.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right, guys. Any other ones that you want to talk about before we bounce out here? We good? These are interesting.
They are.
Quite a year ahead. Quantum computing to make a debut. We're still waiting for that, right, Randy?
No, it's happening. Google's got a commercial chip. I mean, it's like it's solving problems that would have taken 1 trillion years in like 5 minutes. So it's doing
but it's
something.
not publicly available yet.
Yeah, it's soon.
Right, but this was a prediction for 2023. It's 2025.
I know, man. You're not wrong.
So appreciate it, guys. Thanks for the insight. Always good to look back. This was fun. This is a good idea, Andre, to look back a couple years and see where things are evolving. Some things evolve quickly. Some things evolve slowly. But we do know that this stuff is always evolving. Things have changed. You need to protect yourself. If you need help with any of this stuff, reach out to us. Links are in the description. Share the show. Have a happy holiday. We'll see you guys next week. We're doing a show. Are we doing a show before the new year?
Yeah, before.
Yep. So I think we're doing predictions next week. So if you care what we are going to predict for 2025, we'll see you then. Take care, everyone.